Cave with Mike and Max.
Hello and welcome back to the Chat Cave. But this time, it's the Chat Cave of Love. I'm Max, and joined by our gracious host, the one, the only, Mike McGee.
Hey, thanks for that, man. Check out more stuff about the Three Geeks and McG TV. Definitely follow us on Twitter at Three Geeks Podcast, at Mike McG TV, all that good stuff. And Max, you weren't wrong. This is a chat cave dedicated to Lerv.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, man, I'm actually really excited for this episode.
Yeah, we figured since we're in February now, and there's an abundance of cutesy, gushy Valentine stuff fast approaching. Why not talk about the many infatuations, crushes, or serious commitments of the Dark Knight himself in all forms of media, comics, TV shows, movies, perhaps, and list off a couple of our favorites, maybe, who we consider to be like the major loves of Batman, who we consider kind of interesting choices, and, we'll see what we come up with. Max, I want to ask you something before we got into some of these studies of love with Batman. Is Batman actually capable of some serious love?
I think he is, but I don't think that it's ever something he would allow himself to, to fully go through. He's capable of love, but the mission is so important that he wouldn't, he would just cut off the feelings before they had a chance to fully emerge as that.
As you may find out with some of these relationships, like probably the reason they went south, immediately, despite the immediate connection, is that, yeah, the mission comes first. He loves Lady Justice.
And never just leave her alone. It's a rocky relationship, to say the least.
It gives and it takes.
No, it's interesting, but no, I don't think Batman would ever, they toy around with the concept of Batman falling in love, but it's always just like, well, it's still got to be Batman, so there's not really much time for this, and That's the end of the story.
I always equated it to like, okay, you're in love with a cop or a fireman or something like that, but it's not even that, because cops and firemen have vacations, they take breaks, they recognize the value of relationships and family. Batman is like a cop who's never off duty. He's always on the move, always so focused on his sole objective of stopping crime, whatever the crime may be. It reminds me of the movie Hot Fuzz. Nicholas Angel saying to Danny, he's like, "That's the problem, Danny. I don't think I can switch off."
Yeah, he's just like a super cop all the time. I love that movie. And that's the thing is just like set in his ways. Like that's just it. And lucky for Gotham that Batman's out there, but that's what he sacrifices for it, and I think he gives it up pretty willingly. But it sucks for his lady friends.
Mm-hmm. So, shall we dive into these troubled relationships of Bruce Wayne?
Yeah, let's jump right into it.
So we might just trade back and forth here. Let me pose it to you. Let's start right at the top of the list, maybe. Who do you consider to be Batman's all-time truest love, or at least the one who's been the most consistently in that role?
I'd have to give it to Selena Kyle, Catwoman. Whenever I think of if Batman was going to be, right off in the sunset with somebody, it would be Selena Kyle, Catwoman for me. They always toy around with them. There's always that tension between them. Recently, they've gotten married in the comic books.
No, he almost got married, apparently. She backed out at the last second.
Okay. Well, you see, there it is. There's the tension again. I think Catwoman is my first love of Batman. But who's your number one gal?
I mean, I'd be inclined to agree with you because as we were just talking about, like his difficulty in opening up or letting down his guard, I'd say certainly she comes closest to getting the balance right because she's in that world too. You know, she's a vigilante cat burglar type person. She kind of understands that world that he comes from, is accepting of that world that he comes from. In fact, that's part of the reason why I think she backed out of the wedding. I didn't read the full arc, but I read the issue, and apparently the whole reason she kind of backed out was because she was concerned that Batman would be less effective if he had that marital bliss in his life.
So she did it. That's crazy.
Well, there's another complicated thing, like her former protege or whatever is working with Bane and all of them to kind of disrupt Batman's life.
Yeah, I guess I gotta get back into the monthlies, but it's just so hard.
The business reason she backed out was also they were starting a new Catwoman series, and it'd be kind of hard to have a Catwoman solo series if she's married to Batman and is expected to always be showing up in those books. I don't know. They could have made it work. I mean, Damian doesn't really show up in that much of Batman's books anymore because he has his own adventures and
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think. I mean, it's only 2 books. It's not that bad. I think they could have juggled that. It's just all about the planning. You know, you just have to have
Right.
a plan going into it. But I don't feel like Batman should be happy in that way because like he's gotta give up something. Like or else he's got it all. Like he's a super badass. He's ultra rich. He's good looking. He's a ninja, and he gets the girl. Like.
he's too perfect. Ugh.
For his parents being like brutally murdered in front of him. Other than that.
Yeah, other than that. Well, I mean, that's the big kind of, I think, another big defining line between him and Superman is that, Superman grew up with an upbringing, essentially, with parentage, first and foremost at it. So he'd be the most welcoming of starting his own family, but still being a superhero. Batman, this is all he's ever known, is violence and mistrust, and that'd be hard to kind of equate to cookouts and play dates and things like that.
It does suck like whenever you go to the movies and your PTSD kicks in. Like it's not good. Oh, my parents.
Ugh, you and your parents again. Jeez.
Oh God. All right. Because she's also on the other side of it too. Like she is a thief, and and Batman does have to make like concessions morally for her. Like, so that's why also I like them together.
They tried to justify that in the past like 10 years or so, because around the time that they started really leaning into Batman and Catwoman forming a serious relationship where she knows everything about him, to the point that they would get married. It was due to kind of the identity crisis stuff. It was revealed that she may have been mind wiped by Zatanna at some point to be more good. I didn't like that so much. I'm like, why can't they just naturally fall in love?
And then it's like if she's stealing from criminals, I think that's the gray area that she could work in, and have Batman not like he doesn't have to take her down. Stealing from museums and stuff like that. Well, then like you can't let that happen.
I think that's kind of one of the biggest balancing acts with her character specifically is how bad girl do you want her to get? Is she going to be ruthless and vengeful, or is she going to be more just like, I'm just doing this for laughs?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like it when Catwoman is just hardcore. I think it's better when they're not actually in a relationship together.
Right.
Yeah, no, regardless, I still like Selena Kyle. I like the character. I like Catwoman, and I like Catwoman and Batman together.
Yeah. I will say the dialogue and the interactions they have in Hush, especially, before they get serious, like that's some of the best banter between them because they're not quite sure exactly how they feel about one another, but they're still kind of snarking at each other. And
yeah, oh man, I do love Hush.
And for that, you should check out our Hush review on an earlier episode of the Chat Cave. So come back when you finish that up and see if you agree with us on the Batman Catwoman dynamic in that particular story arc.
Number 2, Talia al Ghul. Now, Batman is a victim of rape, but
oh yeah, that's right.
But
Mm,
yeah, like who doesn't want a psycho ninja baby's mama?
jeez.
Yeah, no, I think it's so good. Their relationship, the whole like Ra's al Ghul, Talia al Ghul dynamic is just so good. And then she raped him and took his seed.
Yeah, I get what you're saying with regards to the appeal of Talia is that she's another character like Catwoman who is fully kind of accepting of Batman's mission in the fact that it's almost in line with her dad's. The fact that her dad approves of the match and is creepily pushing for it at all times. There's something to be said there. Like, he's most certainly wanting the Dark Knight seed to be taken by his daughter.
Yeah, it's totally creepy. It's super weird. I dig it. I don't know.
I love that contrast. I know it's weird, it's perverse, it's sick. I kind of dig it.
Oh man, and it's like, she calls him beloved, and like he doesn't. He's like, oh my god, you're so crazy, like all the time. And then like then he just got this kid. She just springs this kid on it.
I mean, it did make for some interesting stories thus far where, yeah, she just leaves the kid on his doorstep and he's like, okay, what do I do with this kid now? Oh, I guess I'll make him a Robin because that's what I always do with kids.
I'll try to keep him from murdering people in the streets.
Batman playing deadbeat dad.
But he's not a deadbeat dad. He didn't know. That's not fair.
I mean, okay, deadbeat dad who was unaware that he was a deadbeat dad until he knew he had a kid.
And then he was just a deadbeat dad. No,
and then then he's like, just don't kill anybody. Go do what you do.
I'm like in the middle of some important work right now, so please just don't kill anybody.
Try not to kill your adoptive brothers, especially the one that's already died. Please don't kill the butler.
Yeah, that's a big ask.
Or he'll expose your identity to the world because he's Alfred and Alfred sucks. It's always going to come back to that, man.
Oh, man.
I kind of liked it when they didn't imply that it wasn't a consensual pairing. Like, why couldn't they just have had a romantic interlude that led to a son being born?
Because Batman knows this chick is crazy. And he wouldn't do that.
But I mean, as smart as he is still human.
Okay, I get it. I don't know. I like that they had to go to extreme. Like they couldn't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like Talia al Ghul is a super intelligent, very good looking woman. There's no reason she should need to drug Batman. but they had to. That's I don't know. I like it. I like that. It's terrible. I don't condone the action. I'm not saying any of that, but for the story, I like it. And Batman is totally cool afterwards. So like, no harm, no foul.
He compartmentalizes pretty quickly, so yeah, he wasn't really that fazed by it, I guess. But I think there's something to be said for the fact that both our number 1 and number 2 choice when it comes to the all-time great Batman loves were both in the final installment of the Nolan trilogy. Spoilers.
Oh, dude.
That wasn't
so bad. I don't even want to think about how they ruined Talia al Ghul in that movie.
I don't know if they really ruined it. It just felt like kind of a twist that everyone kind of saw coming, but they should have just been more upfront with from the beginning.
That twist could have been in M. Night Shyamalan's The Wind or whatever movie where the
The Wind.
movie.
Yeah, I know which movie you're talking about. I just like that's now been narrowed down to The Wind.
That wasn't the official title. Such a waste. That whole movie was. We're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about love. They were both in that Nolan movie. That's true. You can't take that away. So what about movie?
was about to say, movie-wise, because a lot of these characters got translated over to movie, television shows, things like that. Let's kind of go by era, maybe. Let's start with maybe the Burton Schumacher era of Bat films. Who would you consider to be the all-time equal or romantic counterpart to Batman throughout that whole series of movies?
So in the Burton era, we had Vicky Vale, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We had Chase Meridian, and that was Nicole Kidman.
Mm-hmm. We had Catwoman again, Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh yeah, Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer.
But should we just kind of leave her out of the running since we've already kind of solidified her as the top tier Bat love?
Yeah, we can. She gets honorable mention on this one. Can't win everything.
Who was it in Batman and Robin?
Poison Ivy?
Was it Poison Ivy?
Technically.
Technically, yeah, because she was like blowing pheromone dust on them, and
that's also really date rapey.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't go into that territory that the Talia stuff did because, Happy Meal.
But take it to that next level.
He was dating Julie Madsen in Batman and Robin. Julie Madsen, who's actually the first Batman love interest ever.
Huh.
And she was played by Elle Macpherson in Batman and Robin, and she really didn't get a lot to do other than be Elle Macpherson.
All right. Cool. So that chick's ruled out.
She had some interesting stories in the comics, at least. She was being rescued from vampires and the Mad Monk and things like that.
All right. So she managed to get herself in a little bit of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Batman show up. I can dig it. But no, I think it goes to Vicky Vale.
Goes to Vicky? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what about Vicky then? Why Vicky?
She was the first. Like that the Burton Batman movie was like the first, like live action Batman and everything. And for me, at least, because I didn't really watch the TV series until much later. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. And then that she's just that classic blonde bombshell. Like, how much do you pay? 108.
You weigh a little bit more than 108.
Just having to deal like Prince music, Jack Nicholson.
Everything's better with Prince.
She's the first girl that Alfred just told who Batman was for no reason.
It all comes back to that. Alfred, you jerk.
And like Alfred didn't know that he loved doing that so much. So Vicky.
She awoke something in me, sir.
So yeah, no, it's gotta be Vicky Vale. I guess Chase Meridian would probably be like the least like involved in the movie.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I'll have to agree with you. In movie terms, in terms of performance, Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, I think, is number one for me. But that's just based off performance alone, just because she gets to be crazy, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah.
But in terms of a pretty solid relationship dynamic with Batman, I think I would have to go with Vicky, just because the Batman Catwoman stuff in Returns, which you can check out another episode about, it does feel a little bit rushed. I felt. I mean, they work well together, but it's really, really rushed for the sake of we got Christopher Walken, we got a penguin in a onesie. There's a lot of stuff going on, and in the first Batman movie, at least Vicky Vale and Bruce Wayne's relationship and her trying to discover more about him is kind of central to the plot.
Yeah, absolutely. She's also not like actively ruining Bruce Wayne or Batman's life.
Yeah, I guess Chase Meridian, like at a certain point, I guess cures Bruce of Batman.
Yeah, no, she does more damage than like 3 or 4 villains before her.
Like he's ready to throw in the towel to be with her. And
yeah, man. If she was like malicious, like it would have been over. If there was been some like secretive plot,
right,
like, she would have had him.
Yeah, like if it had done kind of the Dark Knight Rises reveal with Chase Meridian, wherein it's like, oh my God, she was working with the Riddler the whole time, and it was all part of her genius plot to mess with Batman's head. Like, yeah, that would actually be maybe more interesting than.
Yeah, definitely interesting. We just wrote a better one.
Again, Nicole Kidman, fine actress, great talent, but she's really not given a lot to do.
No, those movies were not. You'll notice that your most favorite characters from the Burton Schumacher movies, just like basically whoever chewed the most scenery is kind of like the best, with the exception of Tommy Lee Jones, who it just doesn't he doesn't connect.
He doesn't care.
But freaking, who do you love the best? The Joker. Why? Because freaking Jack Nicholson just goes around the room and does whatever he wants.
True that.
And then in the second one, you got Christopher Walken and Michelle Pfeiffer. And and freaking Danny DeVito going staying all over the place, just doing whatever he wants. Bite a dude's nose off and eat the guts out of a fish.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Happy Valentine's Day. But so like the quote unquote best villains and stuff where you're just like, okay, who had the most fun on set?
That's true. And I mean, to her credit, Kim Basinger does well with what she has to do. She's basically playing like Lois Lane, but for Batman, which,
right,
in all honesty, is what the character was originally. Again, a character written in the comics first, but that was kind of a role. People were like, we want Batman to have a supporting cast that's more like Superman's. Why not have a reporter in there trying to figure out who Batman is? Kind of like that other character.
Yeah, and then they kind of relegated her to like entertainment TV,
yeah,
tabloided her up a little bit. So
yeah,
I don't know.
To the point where she only has like a passing interest in Bruce Wayne. Like they go out every once in a while.
Yeah, but she's more interested in like Bruce Wayne, the billionaire, versus who is Batman. That's not. I think they did kind of bring back the more hard nosed reporting in the Arkham series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but again, that she's not really having much to do with his personal arc as it is. She's just another character there. Whereas characters like Talia got invested in his arc in the Arkham games, or at least in Arkham City. Like she was a pretty important part. Since we're excluding Catwoman, since overall we feel Catwoman's kind of numero uno. But yeah, Vicky in the movies. How about for TV? Either the Adam West stuff or the animated series?
No, I'm more particular to the animated series. The Adam West '60s Batman is cool, but I still haven't seen all of it, and it's not really like what I dig about Batman. But like I don't want to like seem like I'm bashing it or anything like that.
Right. Well, to be fair, the '66 stuff, it didn't delve too much into a lot of the real personal life stuff of Bruce Wayne in that regard. Like it basically amounted to a lot of, oh, it's Catwoman in disguise. I'm kind of attracted to her when she's in a disguise. Or Poison Ivy-ish type of motives where people are constantly gassing or drugging Batman and Robin to fall in love with them.
Oh my goodness. Batman has been date rape drugged so many times.
I have a feeling that's got to be its own episode, dude. It's got all the accounts that Batman's been emotionally, physically, and mentally manipulated through chemical substances, through mind games.
I'm gonna throw a curveball out there. For the animated series, I think the Batman Barbara Gordon relationship.
Okay.
Interesting how they did it. Or I shouldn't say for Batman the animated series. It's more in the Batman Beyond where they actually talk about it. Or where she's like, there's like a quick mention or two of a relationship that they had, and I thought that was pretty cool and interesting because they're both adults and they're working together, so whatever. It's weird how it was cool how they did it in that cartoon, but then when you look at like the Killing Joke animation that they made recently, but it's the same relationship. So I don't know. It was weird to me, and I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, thanks.
Like they're both animated, and it's the same relationship, but like still, one is so very creepy.
Same voice actors too.
Yeah.
So you groaned during Dark Knight Rises when I mentioned it. So it's my turn to groan a little bit. Let's go back to the animated series part. Yeah, Batman Beyond's where they kind of flesh out that idea, certainly. It's hinted at here and there in the New Adventures of Batman, and towards the end of the original animated series when Batgirl was showing up more and more. The last episode of the original Batman the Animated Series is all about Batgirl and Catwoman teaming up. And it starts with Batgirl having a dream where she's rescuing Batman from, who is it? Penguin, Two-Face, and the Joker. And, like, he's about to lean in and kiss her. And then she wakes up because Dick Grayson's yelling at her from her window. So it was laid out there that she has something of an infatuation or some kind of interest in Batman to some regard, which, makes sense. Not only had he kind of saved her and her dad's life a couple of times, she kind of saved his life a few times just as a civilian. It's interesting, and definitely interesting given that later on in the series, her and Robin end up seeing each other and having their own tense relationship because she decides to stay with Batman as a teammate.
Yeah, when Robin leaves. I like all that stuff. I love Barbara Gordon, the character. She's great as Batgirl. She's great as Oracle. She's just an awesome character. So I think that relationship too. I think that that wins for my relationship for animated series.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to contest that because as we were talking about this, I realized the animated series actually, I feel, kind of envelops some of the feature-length animated stuff. And if we're talking about loves of Bruce Wayne, I would have to go with Andrea Beaumont, the Phantasm.
Okay, well, that's good. Did they create that character for that movie? I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah, she was she's loosely based off of a supervillain that Batman fought in the Year 2 series. But that was a guy, and, it was a completely different character. But she's loosely based off of that, the Phantasm part. But her part as being, like, this person who knew young Bruce before he decided on the mantle of the Bat. At that point, he's kind of questioning his mission and being like, I don't know if I have it in me to do this. And she kind of provides that light to say, you don't have to do this. We can be happy together. That's kind of a big deal, essentially, where he's ready to give up the mission he hasn't even started yet for this woman.
Yeah, and I also think it's, like, that story is interesting, too, because, like, she would have to give up her mission for him.
Yep.
And, so that's really good. I can't say you're wrong,
Well, good.
I'm going to respectfully disagree.
Okay. There we go.
No, but I like that pick. I do like it, and I thought she was a good character too. And I mean, I like anyone who is like smart and capable, and then they don't like sometimes with like a Lois Lane or something. You're just like, come on, man, like you should know better by now.
It's pretty important because her leaving him gives birth to Batman in a way. Because then he's like, okay, well, that decision's been taken out of my hands. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And then when she comes back, it's sort of him backing away from her after he sees what years have done to her that sets her on her path.
It's a solid story. Mask of the Phantasms, I think, one of the better animated. I mean, actually, I think
it's one of the best Batman movies, I feel, overall.
Joker's in there. It's got everything you need.
It's funny you mentioned Lois Lane. Because, as you may remember, she saw Bruce Wayne for a little bit of time in the Superman-Batman crossover.
Yeah, I like that. That was pretty funny. But that was more of a date situation.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they took it, it went anywhere. It is funny, though, like, hey, Clark, I got there first. Just saying.
I mean, he does outright say it to Clark. It's like, you waited too long, buddy. He's like, I decided to step up. You waited too long. And actually, I mean, I feel that whole relationship was more to inform the character of Superman to that point where he's about to say, like, you know what? I genuinely like Lois.
Yeah.
I am jealous. I need to step up a little bit more in terms of this whole opening up to her.
Yeah, that's true. It was more of a plot mechanic than it was a relationship.
Well, and also it informs the Lois character too, because at a certain point throughout that arc, she finds out that Bruce is Batman, and ultimately that kind of puts her off of seeing or being involved with someone who has a huge, destiny filled role like that.
Yep, no, Lois is she does get a mention in the many loves of Batman.
Coincidentally, both her and Andrea are voiced by the same actress, Dana Delaney.
That is pretty funny.
Yeah. So you go back and watch Phantasm now and just be like, that's Lois's voice coming out of her.
Lois Lane in disguise.
I was waiting for that other shoe to drop to be like, it was me the whole time, Bruce.
Lois Lane just went on an insane murdering spree for no reason. Assume the identity of this other girl.
She's all yours, Clark.
Oh man.
I gotta bring this up because it's something that happened or seemed to be developing later on as the DC animated universe grew and expanded to incorporate more characters. I think you know where I'm going with this. Justice League Unlimited, the Wonder Woman Batman pairing.
I dig this too, because that is like, because Wonder Woman is an Amazon, and for them, it's like they go out and choose the men. Like, you can't just be any dude that's gonna make it with an Amazon warrior. You know what I'm saying? She sees Batman as worthy, so let him get in. I think that relationship too. I thought it was cool. They the characters are very very similar. So it makes sense that they would get along. And obviously being part of the original three, they spent the most time together. Superman always had Lois, so
with him being the most level-headed, serious-minded person there, makes a lot of sense. Like you said, Superman's unavailable because I think at that time in the timeline, he and Lois were seeing each other. The Flash is just kind of this immature little brother character to her. Hawkgirl, she has a rocky relationship with right from the get-go. I mean, later on, Green Lantern and Hawkgirl became an item, but kind of wondering, because he's got sort of when the series begins, he's got sort of a similar personality and mentality as Batman, because he's coming from the military.
Yeah, but I always felt like Green Lantern had a little more compassion.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're definitely more stern and more serious, and just more like, hey, let's do the thing. We can worry about all the other crap later. No, I thought it was cool. Like Green Lantern, actually, he was a bit of a Mac in the Unlimited series. He was with Vixen for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Then he got with Hawkgirl.
Well, they have a son together in the future.
Right. That always sucks. Like when your son from the future shows up.
Dad. It's like, oh. You expect like a Bruce Timm style Doc Brown to come in a DeLorean being like, quit giving each other information about the future.
You would hope. Somebody's got to be the responsible one.
I think basically that's Batman's role at that point. When they meet his son, he's like, you probably shouldn't know too much about this, man.
Shut it.
Shut it. But no, yeah, at first I was a little, I don't know, not off put, but it was definitely eyebrow raising to see Batman and Wonder Woman being very flirtatious towards each other. I guess it does make sense, because like the fact that Batman purposefully makes himself emotionally unavailable to anybody might intrigue her, because her whole character is about being somewhat understanding, empathetic, and loving while still being a fierce warrior. It probably discombobulates her a little to be like, how can this guy be so shut off and still be such a badass?
I've never met anybody so closed up.
It's like a neon sign on him being like, try to date me, I dare you.
Hey, that's it. Like some women love a project, so here you go.
He brings it up in the episode where she gets turned into a pig. He's like, dating within the team is always a problem, and I'm a rich boy with issues, so. Oh, you know who we forgot? Zatanna.
Oh, okay, no, we did not forget her. She's just not. We have not had time to mention.
Oh, that's right. We haven't had time to kvetch about her. Okay.
Zatanna, yeah, like that's always an interesting relationship. Batman, like, apprenticed under Zatara for a while,
mm-hmm.
And so that's how they met. And they young love, yada yada. But they remain good friends after, and that's cool too. It's like that's a kind of a more rare relationship where they show where like, okay, this is someone who was intimate with Batman for a while, and she understands and he understands, and they're still working together, even
Right.
though it's a little bit awkward every now and again.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like Zatanna's awesome. I know just like Batman hates magic. Okay, like when you just all the sense and logic and and throw it out the window, you put Batman on the back foot. That's not his. That's where he's comfortable playing. That's not his cup of tea. So the relationship between Zatanna and Batman is hilarious to me because like she would mess him up. Like that. Like there's nothing that he can do, and then that's why Batman hates magic because like anything can happen at any time, and then for the guy who tries to plan for everything, that is got to be maddening.
I will say this was a relationship that first developed in the animated series. Like before then, Batman and Zatanna never really interacted much in comics.
Huh.
But it was because of that episode that she was introduced in that they liked her pairing with Batman so much that the people eventually like wrote in this retconned history that, oh no, yeah, they've been friends and a little bit more every once in a while, going way back, and he still trusts her up until the point where she wiped his memory. Again, coming back to that.
Yeah, and that does give that a lot more weight too.
It's a big betrayal moment.
Right. So yeah, no, Zatanna's great. That's another good mention. I was on someplace and they said Batman had a relationship with Black Canary for a little while.
In the comics, they would maybe go out once or twice. In the All-Star Batman and Robin, done by crazy old Frank Miller without restrictions, that's where we get the goddamn Batman. He hooks up with Black Canary on a dock in the rain after they've brutally assaulted some muggers and set a couple of them on fire, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's interesting. In fact, that's a perfect segue into maybe our next section here. What are some of the more interesting Batman pairings that you and I have come across? That seems like an out there one. Like they have sex in the rain, and that constitutes them being an item in that universe, anyways.
They did that again in a Catwoman comic book, where they just like bang on a rooftop somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably the one that was just like, okay, well, I guess. So creepy.
Are there any like one-time loves or one-time kind of romantic entanglements that you can think of? That
the last one I have on my list here. Oh, okay, actually, I've got two more.
Okay.
But Silver St. Cloud would probably fit this category that you just said.
Oh, man, you beat me to silver. Nuts. Go for it.
Yeah, she was that the Kevin Smith run?
Well, she showed up in like the 70s.
Oh, okay.
First, and then she came back for Kevin Smith's run. You talk a little bit about the Kevin Smith run. I'll cover the Steve Englehart stuff.
I love Kevin Smith, but I'm not a huge fan of his Batman work. We're not going to mention the bladder spasm, okay? We're not even going to mention it. But Silver St. Cloud was she's aware that he's Batman, and he does this kind of like, okay, she's totally cool with just spending the day with Bruce Wayne and knows that he's going to go be Batman at night, and they're sort of happy, but I don't really like her. I didn't really like her.
That's what I recall from his run as well. Yeah, the bladder spasm, I think it's the Floronic Man who basically creates weed, or Poison Ivy creates like weed to stone Batman. Again, drugging Batman.
We do need to do an episode on it.
The poor guy. It happens so frequently. But yeah, I don't like the way she's really written in that run. She's have you read any of the Englehart stuff?
No, I don't think so.
It's way, way better. And her introduction and her character arc throughout that run is way better. For those of you who heard my Halloween recommendations, I recommended this Englehart run of comics that goes under the title Strange Apparitions. first of all, it starts off with Hugo Strange finding out who Batman is, and then he dies, and then he haunts the rest of the characters. And then you bring in the Penguin, you bring in Deadshot, you bring in the Joker for the Laughing Fish scandal. And Silver St. Cloud is there throughout the whole thing. She discovers, I mean, it's kind of an obvious way she discovers that Bruce Wayne is Batman, because she spends so many evenings studying Bruce Wayne and Batman's jawline. It makes sense. I mean, that is the most prominent physical feature on him you could identify. Wow, I've seen that jaw before.
That's a familiar jaw. Hold on. Do I know that jaw?
And she doesn't come right out and confront him with it, though. Like you said, she kind of gets this is his world, and while she doesn't fully understand why this is his world, she kind of allows the facade to continue that she's aloof, even though they both know that she knows. And then at the very end, she, leaves Gotham because she's like, I can't be involved in this. But I did like her character. She's more well-rounded in that series than she is when Kevin Smith brings her back.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That sounds much better. But yeah, I just don't think Kevin Smith just gave her any real, gave her a fair shake.
He left it on like a huge cliffhanger too.
Sorry, Silver St. Cloud didn't get the best treatment, but she was there, and you can't say she didn't help Batman at a point in his life.
I have a couple here on my list. Well, I think we should give a recommendation to a wild card, that being Harley Quinn. Even though they've never really been an item thing, she's always been pretty flirtatious with Batman, even in the animated series where like he bought her or he retrieved her dress that she paid for after she went straight. He's like, it's all a big misunderstanding. I had a bad day once too.
We'll throw Harley in there. I guess she's got to be everywhere now. But
no, seriously. I think there's like a comic where she's trying to go legitimate in the New 52 storyline, and she actually goes on a date with Bruce, and Bruce seems to have a good time with her because they're just having a normal date. But then she has to go off and do, I can't remember what, a Suicide Squad mission or something. And then Batman shows up later and like confronts her about, you're getting into trouble again, Harley. And she's like, yeah, don't tell Bruce because I don't want to break his heart or something like that. It's like, it's really kind of sweet and sad a little bit. So I think unless writers write her in a terrible way where she is unforgivable and has basically killed as many people as the Joker, when they make her sympathetic, like Batman, I don't know, kind of sees her more as like this annoying kid sister that he has to put up with sometimes, but he doesn't outwardly despise too much.
Yeah, Harley Quinn, and he knows like how sad it is, like what happened to her. So
right,
that's the other thing too. So yeah, Harley Quinn. Yeah, I like the character. I'm not gonna. I just don't feel like she's really a Batman lover. But like whatever. That's cool. We can definitely mention her. She's cool.
A good frenemy.
Yes, indeed. Frenemy with small benefits.
God knows what those small benefits are. Every once in a while you get a whoopee cushion to the face. I don't know.
Or a mallet.
Or a mallet. Or, as we saw in Batman and Harley Quinn, she'll just hook up with your former sidekick, which, again, weird, but okay.
Yes.
Okay, so the two honorable mentions I had here that maybe not many people are aware of, or they're just not as big as some of the ones we mentioned. Jezebel Jet from Grant Morrison's run.
Good call.
Even though you could tell what was going to happen with her character pretty instantaneously. I don't know. When so many things surrounding a conspiracy to destroy Batman happen just as he's getting into a relationship with this woman, I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Occam's razor brings you down to Jezebel Jet pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. Talia sorted her out, apparently, in the end of all that. But I thought she was interesting just because as I was reading the books at the time, I knew exactly what was going to happen with her character. But I'm like, okay, she's likable at least at certain points. The second character I want to mention is this. I don't know if you know of this character, Nocturna.
Turna.
Yeah. Her name is either Natasha or Natalia Knight. Okay, brace yourself, dude, because this is an interesting little bit of bat history coming to you. So Natalia Knight, or Nocturna, started out as sort of this woman involved in her family's like mafioso style crime family
Okay.
until an accident with radioactivity or something exposed her to some radioactive rays, and she became like pale as all hell, was weak in daylight, but also had nocturnal based powers.
All
And
right.
for a while, she was a big enemy towards Batman until at one point he was like, "There's good in you, I know it." And she tried to kind of find the balance, much like a Catwoman would, and
Okay.
began to admit that she had some feelings for Batman. Then she and Bruce Wayne fought over custody for Jason Todd.
Custody?
Yeah. She became Jason Todd's adoptive mother. This is pre Infinite Crisis. So this is Jason Todd before Death in the Family and all that stuff was
Right.
canon. He had a very different history compared to after Infinite Crisis, or Crisis on Infinite Earths, I should say. Yeah, she became his adoptive mother
Good God.
and was like, "You can't go on patrol with Batman." And eventually she found out Bruce was Batman as well. He's like, "Mom."
Oh, you're person for Batman.
But eventually she kind of warms to the notion that, okay, this is what he does. I can't control what he does. And I guess it was looking to the point where it was going to be a crime fighting trio, a family, essentially. It was going to be like the Incredibles, but with Batman characters.
Bat credible.
The Bat Credibles. And for a brief moment, like her and Bruce dated. She kind of, in some of the stuff I've read, she plays more as like the Black Cat from Spider-Man than Catwoman.
Okay. Yeah.
Wherein I feel in a lot of interpretations of Catwoman, she is accepting of both Bruce and Batman. She can live with one or the other. Whereas Nocturna sort of developed this Black Cat personality where she's like, I only like Batman. Bruce Wayne is boring, or something like that. Eventually, she died, or faked her death, or something.
Yeah.
But I just found that interesting that at one point, Batman and her fought over custody for Jason.
And Batman lost.
And Batman lost. Yeah.
That's what's crazy. How do you take custody from a billionaire?
Yeah.
Oh man, the alimony payments must have been crazy.
So I thought I'd throw her an honorable mention because it is an interesting dynamic, and you'll see it on the thumbnail for this podcast. She's down at the bottom, like it's just this pale woman with like chic black hair in an embrace with Batman. And it is a pretty iconic looking image. And apparently, had the new Batman adventures continued, Bruce Timm was going to bring her into the animated series.
Huh.
And she would have been kind of in the same role. Like, he was planning to bring in a couple more. Like, he was planning to bring in Black Canary for, like, a Birds of Prey or Gotham Sirens type of team up. And Nocturna was supposed to show up as a villain who eventually kind of took a shine to Batman. But that never happened.
Young Justice showed us that strong female characters nobody likes, so it's a good thing that it ended before Bruce Timm could ruin it with all these strong female characters, okay?
Jeez.
One last little mention.
All right.
Because you brought up the Nolan verse, and we never even mentioned Rachel Dawes.
Oh, that's right. Oh, man.
Rachel! Yeah. How do you feel about Rachel Dawes?
I didn't mind the character. She was utilized more as a gimmick in The Dark Knight because that's all about like, we got to make Harvey Dent crazy somehow. So how do we do that? Let's blow her up.
Yeah.
I wasn't really a fan of that, especially since earlier in the movie and the movie prior established her as being a little bit more, active, but also a little bit more important just beyond the love interest needs to die. I didn't mind the performances so much. I like both Maggie Gyllenhaal and Katie Holmes. I thought they both did fine. It's just the problem was Katie Holmes in that role to begin with was distracting because that was around the time that it was all about Katie and Tom, and they're out promoting War of the Worlds and Batman Begins, and he's jumping on couches and shit. That was all a big detractor from her performance. I feel was just all the celebrity around it.
And also I feel like Batman Begins is just not as good as the Dark Knight. It's
Right,
like everything in the Dark Knight better, and so it wasn't all her fault. I don't think Katie Holmes is as good as an actress as Maggie Gyllenhaal.
right,
So I
right.
liked Maggie Gyllenhaal in the role, but again, like they were both that person in the movie that they were given. So it's like Katie Holmes was fine for Batman Begins because like that was a Katie Holmes movie,
Hmm.
but you need a little more chops when you go to the next one, so it makes more sense. And I did like I like Maggie Gyllenhaal a lot as Rachel Dawes. She blows up real nice.
Jeez. And once again, Alfred, you fucked up. Just give him that letter.
And Alfred's got it, dude. He's like, I didn't even get to shore the fucking Batcave.
We didn't even have a cave. We went to the
No,
docks, and I went down the elevator.
my cocaine.
My cocaine.
Yeah, no, Alfred was pissed because he didn't get to tell her that Bruce was Bruce. Like the cat was already out of the bag, and he likes to be the one to hit the people with the info. So that's why he didn't give Bruce the letter.
And ultimately, doesn't that make him the ultimate love in Bruce's life?
Yes, it is actually Alfred, the quintessential love.
I mean, look at it this way. He's constantly kind of testing the waters of the relationship when it comes to trust, and Batman keeps just letting him in further to the circle of trust. So, I mean, it speaks volumes that despite all these flagrant violations of privacy and security that he waves away, Batman's still like, I'm glad I still have you, Alfred.
Yep, I'll always have you, Alfred.
I'll always have you, Alfred. Oh, hey, Vicky, what are you doing here?
Oh man, yeah, no, that's true. You're right. You're 100% right, Mike. It's Alfred.
So, forget Catwoman. It's all about Alfred. Well, let's just
Yep.
call it Back to the Alfred Cave or whatever.
Oh man. All right. Well, is that? I think that's everyone. That's everyone, right?
I
Including.
I
That's got to
mean,
be.
yeah, they're like one-off characters and things like that that we didn't really mention. But I think we've touched upon all of the real crucial characters in Bruce's love life.
Yeah, man. I mean, Batman's not like a playboy, but he gets around.
And when he gets around, there are some severe paternal consequences.
Oh man. Yeah, that's she shows up with a 12-year-old boy.
Couple that with the fact that he's adopting kids left and right, and couple that also with the fact that some 60 years down the road, someone's going to clone him and make Batman Beyond.
You see, at least they didn't date rape him that time. Like at least they just took some hair.
Yeah. Oh, what's this? Oh, blood. I sure hope it's Batman's. Let's get you that flu shot, Mr. McGinnis.
Yep.
Yeah, and that one, Mr. McGinnis is the one who gets drugged, technically.
It's always somebody. It can't ever just be, like clean above the board.
DC writers, we got to have a serious talk about the
Yeah.
treatment of Batman characters and your reliance on constantly drugging, dousing, or rewriting their genetic makeup. It's ridiculous.
This is gonna look real bad.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, what we can agree on is that Batman has a very complicated love life. His mission is very simple. I think that's why he adheres to that more than anything else. Straightforward. Gotta stop crime.
Yep, we can do this.
Going out to dinner, picking out floral arrangements for the wedding.
Picking up little Damien from soccer practice.
Yeah. Alfred, you do this stuff. Anything for you, darling. What was that? Sir? I mean, sir.
I love you, sir.
It's gonna happen. One of these days, Scott Snyder, Tom King, one of the writers, is just gonna drop that on us and be like, sir, there's something you need to know. What's that, Alfred? I want to thank you. Dido just starts playing in the background.
Oh my goodness.
The camera just turns around both of them. Superman flies in, stares awkwardly. A single tear forms in his cheek. Flies away.
Yeah, that's Superman just likes to watch people getting down with their freaking 75-year-old butlers.
See, Kevin Smith, we can write this type of book too. I hope we can give him an idea for the follow-up to the Silver St. Cloud arc.
Yep.
Yep. No Silver St. Cloud, just dump her in favor of Batman and Alfred getting it on while Superman watches in the corner.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Wow. Kev, Mark, get on that.
That is all yours.
Mr. Bernardin, if you will, please. Well, you've been listening to The Chat Cave here on McGTV. YouTube.com/Mike McGTV. Thank you again, Max. It's always fun to talk Batman with you and have a couple of laughs.
I am not going to forget this episode anytime soon.
So check out more at Twitter, at 3geekspodcast, at Mike McGTV. And as always, same chat time, same chat channel. Happy Valentine's Day.
Indeed. Recycle your droids.